There once was a young person named Red Riding Hood who lived with her mother on the edge of a large wood. One day, her mother asked her to take a basket of fresh fruit and mineral water to her grandmother's house. Not because this was woman's work, mind you, but because the deed was generous and helped engender a feeling of community. Furthermore, her grandmother was not sick, but rather in full physical and mental health, and was fully capable of taking care of herself as a mature adult. So Red Riding Hood set off with her basket through the woods. Many people believed that the forest was a foreboding and dangerous place and never set foot in it. But Red Riding Hood, however, was confident enough in her own budding sexuality that such obvious Freudian imagery did not intimidate her.
I'm an independent woman!
On the way to Grandma's house, Red Riding Hood was accosted by a wolf, who asked her what was in her basket. She replied,
"Some healthy snacks for my grandmother, who is certainly capable of taking care of herself as a mature adult."
The wolf said, "You know, my dear, it isn't safe for a little girl to walk through these woods alone." Little Red Riding Hood said,
"I find your sexist remark offensive in the extreme." The extreme! "But I will ignore it because of your traditional status as an outcast from society, the stress of which has caused you to develop your own entirely valid worldview. Now if you'll excuse me, I must be on my way." How dare he speak to me like that? Does he know who I am? Does he know how many books I have about me?
Gangsta, gangsta, tell me how you gangsta, 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 tell me how you
Red Riding Hood walked on along the main path and decided to stop and pick some flowers. Because his status outside society had freed him from slavish adherence to linear Western-style thinking, the wolf knew a quicker route to Grandma's house.
I know a quicker route.
He burst into the house and ate Grandma, an entirely valid course of action for a carnivore such as himself. Then, unhampered by traditionalist notions of what was masculine or feminine, he put on Grandma's nightclothes and crawled into bed.
I'm not a transvestite, just sometimes I like to wear women's clothing and call myself Stella.
Red Riding Hood entered the cottage and said,
"Grandma, I have brought you some fat-free, sodium-free snacks to salute you in your role of a wise and nurturing matriarch."
From the bed, the wolf said softly, "Come closer, child, so that I might see." Red Riding Hood said,
"I forgot you were as optically challenged as a bat." "Grandma, what big eyes you have."
"They have seen much and forgiven much."
"Grandma, what a big nose you have. Only relatively, of course, and certainly attractive in its own way."
"It has smelled much and forgiven much, my dear."
"Grandma, what big teeth you had."
The wolf said, "I am happy with who I am and what I am," and leaped out of bed. He grabbed Red Riding Hood in his claws, intent on devouring her. Red Riding Hood screamed! Not out of alarm at the wolf's apparent tendency for cross-dressing, but because of his willful invasion of her personal space.
How continental!
Her screams were heard by a passing woodcutter person, or log fuel technician, as he preferred to be called.
What was that? I shall investigate.
When he burst into the cottage, he saw the melee and tried to intervene, but as he raised his axe, Red Riding Hood and the wolf both stopped.
And just what do you think you are doing?
Asked Red Riding Hood. The woodcutter person blinked and tried to answer, but no words came to him.
Bursting in here like a Neanderthal, trusting your weapon to do the thinking for you, she exclaimed. Narrow-minded, pig-headed, purveyor of indecency. Sexist?
Speciesist.
How dare you assume that women and wolves can't solve their own problems without a man's help?
When she heard Red Riding Hood's impassioned speech, Grandma jumped out of the wolf's mouth, seized the woodcutter person's axe and cut his head off.
Well, I'm glad to be out of there.
After this ordeal, Red Riding Hood, Grandma and the wolf felt a certain commonality of purpose. They decided to set up an alternative household based on mutual respect and cooperation. And they lived happily ever after. The end.
You're not too bad actually.